To work effectively and collaborate with other artists, you need to be familiar with some key terminology used in Photoshop. I'm your professor, Marty Pfeiffer. In this presentation, we'll explore what is Photoshop, how does it involve pixels and vectors, and then we'll conclude by discussing file types and creating new files from scratch. Photoshop is a bitmap image editor, which means that it's pixel-based. Pixel is short for picture element, and it represents the smallest unit that a computer screen can display. Vectors, on the other hand, are mathematically described lines and curves. That means they're infinitely resizable without loss of quality. In Photoshop, vectors can be used to draw simple shapes, and type is also a vector-based element. In addition to using vectors as visible objects, they can also be used to make selections or to anchor type to a path. It's fun to put type on a wavy line, for instance, but selecting using the vector tools isn't as necessary these days, which is great, because that method isn't very fun. It turns out that the pixel-based selection tools are the best choice for even the trickiest selections in today's workflow. When you place a Photoshop file in InDesign, even if it is composed solely of vector elements with no pixels, it will be displayed and printed as pixels. Behind the scenes, Photoshop creates a pixel layer for any layer that has vector elements. Image size does not tell the whole story. It's just the height and width in pixels. Someone might tell you that they have a 300 pixel image, but does that mean it's 300 pixels wide? Or are they saying it has a resolution of 300 pixels per inch? You need to know more about how those pixels are going to be used. Resolution refers to the number of pixels per inch, or as we abbreviate it, PPI. Generally, for professional work, you'll be asked to deliver images that are 300 pixels per inch. This helps ensure you won't see those pixels on the printed page. Instead, it'll look like a nice continuous tone image. For computer screens, we typically think of resolution as being 72 pixels per inch. But this hasn't been true for a long time. Screens have gotten much better. Even the least expensive iMac has a resolution of 200 pixels per inch. Document size is another thing. This is the physical height and width of the image. Think of an 8 by 10 inch photo that you could put in a standard picture frame, or the common European A4 paper size, which is 21 by 30 centimeters. Document size and resolution work together to determine the total number of pixels in an image. It's important to have enough pixels for the image's intended use. Resizing down is easy, but it's harder to make sharp images from too few pixels. When a client tells me they want a 300 pixel per inch image, I always ask, how big do you want to print it? Somehow, many people have gotten into their heads that if you start with 300 ppi, everything will be all right. But you really need to know both sets of numbers, the resolution and the document size. Transforming computer-readable objects into one or more images is called rendering. This is the general term. Think of all those Pixar movies. They take multiple 3D objects, apply pixel-based textures to each one, and then create lighting effects to ensure they appear to belong in the same space. That requires a significant amount of computing power. A single computer takes a day to render a single frame of animation. Obviously, Pixar can afford more than one computer. The specific rendering process that we use in Photoshop is called rasterizing. And that's when we transform a vector image into a pixel-based image. For instance, with a laser printer, it can only melt tiny dots of toner at one resolution onto paper. Consequently, anything you send to a laser printer needs to be pixel-based, or it'll be rasterized on the printer itself. So all these pixels and vectors need to be stored somewhere. PSD is the native file type for Photoshop, but it can open, edit, and save a variety of different file types. For print, common formats are PDF, TIFF, or JPEG. And for the web, JPEG, PNG, or GIF files. However, Keep in mind that saving or exporting to non-native formats removes some Photoshop editing features. It's a good idea to retain the original PSD file so that you can easily make changes later. Open Photoshop and let's create a new file. We'll explore how to create a regular single image as well as how to create a file with multiple artboards. When Photoshop is open but doesn't have a file open, you'll see this screen. Click the blue New File button to get started. There are numerous presets to choose from. They are stored into categories. Click on the Photo tab and then select the default Photoshop size from the presets. Change the units to pixels and then change the width and height to 800. Now, what would happen if we did those last two steps in reverse? Let's try that. Click on Landscape 3x2 and then click on the default Photoshop size again. I'll type in 800 for both the width and height and then change the unit to pixels. Photoshop did the math and gave us a huge image. We don't want that. Let's change the width and height back to 800 pixels. Change the resolution to 72 pixels per inch. RGB and 8-bit are fine, so we can leave those as is. Change the background contents to transparent. If you click on Advanced Options, you'll find additional settings. Color profiles are crucial for maintaining accurate color across output devices. Since we are working on an image for the screen, the default working RGB, sRGB, is a good choice. The pixel aspect ratio is important when working with certain video formats, otherwise square pixels are what we want. Click the Create button and Photoshop will create a new file with our custom specifications. Awesome! Here are the steps that we took for reference. Now let's try setting up a Photoshop file with artboards. This allows you to work on multiple images within a single file. That can be handy when creating user interface graphics for a website or app, for instance. We'll create artboards with these specifications. Let's close the file we just created without saving. The Photoshop home screen reappears. Once again, press the blue New File button. This time, we'll click on the Print tab and select the Legal preset. We want to make a set of landscape images, so click on the appropriate button to change the orientation. Right next to that, check the Artboards box. Now that we set the document size, we can adjust the resolution if desired. Let's change it to 150 pixels per inch, which is fine for printing images on a desktop laser printer. The rule of thumb for printing images with good tonal fidelity is to ensure the resolution is twice the line screen frequency. A line screen is measured in lines per inch, or LPI. This represents the number of halftone dots that can be accommodated in an inch. Most desktop printers can produce a LPI of 75, so twice that number is 150. This time, we'll set the background to black. Now, click the blue Create button, and Photoshop will create a new file with a single artboard. Since we want 4 artboards, we'll need to add them. Long-click on the Move tool to change to the Artboard tool. Then click on the artboard name, either in the Layers panel or in the document area. You'll notice there are now plus icons on each edge. Click on any of these icons to create a new artboard there. Once you're done, press Ctrl or Command 0 to zoom out and see all 4 artboards at once. Pretty neat!